Joining us tonight. My name is John with thepinetree.net, and tonight we are doing an assessor's debate, an assessor candidates debate. And we want to thank you very much for both candidates for showing up here tonight. I know this is kind of down the home stretch, and sometimes these stages of the campaigns can get a little bit contentious and back and forth, and I want to say thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, John, for having us.
And we'll start out with 3-minute opening statements. Who wants to go first?
Feel free.
All right, there we go.
All right, great, thank you. Well, I am Christy Boreen-Reisman. I'm a candidate for assessor. And I think like many Americans over the last couple of years, I've become increasingly concerned about the general state of government today. And like many people, had that decision of face the choice of staying home and complaining about it or doing something about it. And I really believe that George Washington had it right, that every single one of us needs to show up, give our 8 years of service, and then go home. And so I felt like when this position came up, this is subject matter that I know quite a bit about. And I felt that it was my obligation as a citizen, as a resident of Calaveras County, to go and put in some time and see what I can do to make my county a better place to live. In the course of running my business, several people have called me and expressed concerns specifically about concerns that they've had about their assessment issues, and it just seemed like there was something that I could bring to the process. In the process of my business, I work with data that comes from the assessor's office on a regular basis, and oftentimes that data is very flawed. Now, some assessor's offices have the same issue. Some of the data is old and hasn't really been updated, but then there's other assessor's offices in the state, because I work with a lot of them, that tend to have pretty accurate data, and that's really important as we move into the future, where our world is moving more towards an automated-based system. And in order for anyone in Calaveras County to use, to be able to work with their home, to be able to work with values, that data really needs to be correct. And so I think that the source of all that data, the keeper of the data, is the assessor's office. And so that's something that I would really like to do. So I decided to throw my hat into the ring, and here I am.
All right. How about you, Leslie?
A few more seconds left, and if you want to continue. About 40 seconds left.
It's okay.
All right.
All right. Well, John, good evening. Christy, hello. Thank you, Kim and John, for hosting tonight's discussion between Christy and I, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. My name is Leslie Davis. I'm currently your acting county assessor, and I would like the job in the next 4 years. I have been in Calaveras County for the last 10 years. It's been my honor to serve each and every one of you. I'm running for assessor because I believe I have the skills and abilities to lead this office over the next over the next 4 years. We face a lot of challenges in the assessor's office. We have diminishing budget, diminishing staff, and increasing workload. My staff is doing an excellent job under these conditions, and I really want to give them a little bit of applause, John, because I think they are doing such a good job.
Now, this is kind of going off script here a little bit, but you understand, was one of them involved in an accident on the way here, or is that...
Well, I'm a little concerned. I don't know. On our way up here tonight, there was an accident, and one of my staff members was standing on the side of the road talking to one of the officials, so I'm a little concerned about his safety and well-being, and
I think we
my
just
hope
saw
and
for...
thoughts are with
It's just a
him.
minor
yeah,
injury, yeah.
I think it
Good.
was minor.
Good.
All right. Well, as we get into this, I think we'll have some general questions, and then we'll go into some more specific stuff later. I would say the first couple ones...
I'm going to have to pause for a moment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, this timer's
The
up.
timer here, let me see the timer
Okay,
real
sorry.
quick here. All right, technical difficulties here on the fly. Okay. Here, Kim. It was just on the wrong
Yeah, you
setting.
still have some more
Here you go.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. There we go. And sorry. There we go. And I guess continue on.
Oh, well.
Sorry, and we kind of got you all disjointed there because we got into the accident stuff. And,
Well,
yeah.
that's absolutely okay. If you've ever worked in government, certainly in the assessor's office, you know you have to roll with the punches. So that's absolutely okay. I'll simply close by saying I'd appreciate your vote on June 8th.
All right. Yeah, one of the questions we'd like to start with is, and the first couple ones will be just kind of general questions, then we get into more of the specific stuff. We'll allow some responses, some responses after the point. But I would say the first one is, this is kind of an open-ended one. And in your opinion, and what would be the core functions of the assessor's office, and also, because I think one of the things is a lot of people on some, especially in this race, is what do they see, and this is kind of an informational one for the voting public as well. I mean, the core functions of the assessor's office as you see them, and also in actuality, and just a couple minutes on those. So start off with 2 minutes on each, and this one would just be what would be the core functions of the assessor's office. And you want to, since you started with the opening, you want to start with you, Leslie, on that one?
Certainly, John. The
Sure.
core functions of the assessor's office are established by law. Our job is to inventory and value all property in the county, to enroll that value on the assessment roll, to deliver that assessment roll to the auditor by July 1st every year, to administer property tax exemptions, and to maintain assessment maps. Now, implicit in that is the provision of public service. That's what we do every day at our front counter and every day on the telephone. And also implicit is the fair and accurate assessment of all property in the county.
All right. So you want to leave it at that? All
That's
right.
it.
Okay. How about you, Kristen?
Well, obviously, it is established by law, and so that would be, again, the primary responsibility is to identify, locate, and value all of the taxable property in the county. That would be secured and unsecured property. In addition to that, the California Constitution requires that the assessor be an elected office. The assessor, in addition to the supervisors, the sheriff, and the district attorney, the assessor is the only office that must be elected. It cannot be appointed. And I think that just really goes to highlight the importance of the office of assessor, that these positions must be elected because they're the ones that really have the opportunity to really control how the citizens of Calaveras County and the other counties in California live their lives.
All right. Now, the next question would be, what are your qualifications for the position? What are the qualifications for the position? So I guess this is one of the, the resume style question, and we'll start off with you on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that rather than going first to what I think the qualifications of the position are, why don't we start with what the Board of Equalization thinks the qualifications for the position are? And Board of Equalization Rule 283 requires that in order to work in the assessor's office, the only requirement really is that, other than the standards of being a citizen and that type of thing, is that you have a permanent appraiser's certificate. And in addition to certain educational requirements that you can meet, they also accept that certain relevant experience will qualify you to be able to get that permanent appraiser certificate. And that experience specifically includes being a real estate loan agent, being a real estate mortgage underwriter, or being a real estate licensee. And I have obviously two of those qualifications. I've been a real estate loan agent for 17 years. I have been a real estate licensee for 17 years, 10 of which I've had my broker's license. And one of the requirements to be able to obtain your broker's license is to have several college-level courses. I've had approximately 54 units of college-level education, all specifically geared towards real estate, appraisal, economics, finance, that type of thing that really has to do with understanding fair market value, understanding housing criteria. And in addition to that, I have been the broker, owner, manager of a small business here in Calaveras County that over the last 14 years has created 22 local jobs.
All right.
And I'm out of time. But there's more.
And Leslie.
Well, John, I understood the question to be one of, give us your resume, so.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, what are your qualifications for the,
All right,
the job
well,
you're
well,
seeking?
let me start with, Christy is correct. In order to be the assessor, you need to be an appraiser for property tax purposes. I hold the advanced appraiser certificate for property tax purposes. I also have the Office of Real Estate Appraisers Certified General Certification. It is the highest appraisal certification granted by the state Office of Real Estate Appraisers, and I have a designation from the Appraisal Institute. In addition to that, I have 20 years of experience in California County Assessor's offices and another 12 years of experience owning and operating my own appraisal business. I have experience in almost all facets of an assessor's office. I can appraise property. I can also read documents and legal descriptions. I can determine whether or not those documents are reappraisable events. And I've managed the department over the last 4 years and have produced a number of budgets, all of which I'm happy to say we've come in under budget every year. So I think I meet the minimum qualifications.
All right. Now, this is another more of the general, a little more of a general one on this race is, what do you believe are the main issues in this race? I mean, because one of the things that, that's driving you around, the core issues, what do you believe are the main issues in this race? And we'll start off with you, Kristen.
Okay. I believe that the main issues of this race are really being able to communicate with the general public in Calaveras County and being able to assess their properties at fair market value in the year in which those values apply. Its value is something that changes constantly and always has. I've heard a lot of people say throughout this race, oh, this is the first time that values have ever dropped, and, oh my goodness, everybody's only jumping into this race because the economy's bad. Well, because I've been here my entire life and been through a number of cycles, most of us realize that that recessions as well as really good times are on about a 7 to 10 year cycle, and that's fairly consistent since World War II. And those of us who have been actively involved in the market can kind of see the pattern of these cycles, and I think that it's really, really important that the assessor's office, as well as other government offices, just like private businesses do, need to understand the market fluctuations and need to be ready for them, whether they're lows or highs. There's certainly challenges that come with highs as well as lows, such as the increased volume and being ready to meet that volume. So to me, the challenge is really preparation, catching up with technology. Generally, government does, and this isn't a slam against Leslie or anyone else. It's just simply a fact that government tends to run slightly behind private industry as far as keeping up with technology. And Calaveras County government, unfortunately, tends to be even further back than that.
All right.
You can read that one.
Yeah, we'll probably get into that portion a little bit later on this one. What do you believe are the main issues in this race?
Well, John, I think the three main issues are qualifications, qualifications, and qualifications. I bring to the table experience in this field, and I believe the taxpayer is best served when the assessor understands the job and can help the staff understand the job as well. Our function is fair and accurate assessments, and you don't get fair and accurate assessments without qualified and competent staff. I'm happy to say we have that, and I'm happy to say that I have the skills and ability to lead them.
All right. Okay. And now we'll get into a little more of some of the specific ones. And let's see here. one more general one before we get to some of the specific ones. And this was a little bit more of a lighthearted one going forward. And then, why will we be glad that we voted for you 3 years from now? And let's see, we'll start off with you on this one.
Okay. I think the main reason that voters will be happy that they voted for me 3 years from now is they will have voted for someone who is looking out for their best interest, who has a proven track record of having done that, and they will be voting for the person who knows how to proactively reduce values when it's appropriate. Over the last 3 years, my office has been looking at thousands of assessments every year with an eye toward the decline in value assessments that we've been talking about. I think 3 years from now, we'll look back on this time and say, we did an excellent job, and I'll be happy to be the person who led us into that.
All right. And Christy, how about?
3 years from now, the voters will be very pleased that they elected me as their county assessor, because within 6 months or less of my assuming office, I will have resolved the backlog of assessment appeals. I will have made sure that I am able to communicate with all taxpayers in a manner that is not confrontational, and I will have updated the county's use of the existing technology and infrastructure so that the data that's currently sitting in paper files is actually in the computer databases. Furthermore, they will be happy that they've elected me because there's a lot of technology out there that the assessor's office currently does not access that could make everyone's jobs easier, including the internal staff. The assessor's office does not utilize the multiple listing service. There's satellite technology that could be used to make viewing properties significantly easier. And I think that we will be able to move forward, get through many more volumes of information than is currently done, and able to free up staff time in order to update everything in a much more efficient manner.
All right. Did you do yours yet?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought on the next one. Okay, so we'll look at the next question. Okay, and this one segues a little bit into what the question we just asked. And what will you do as assessor to improve the transparency and communication with the public? You know, I guess, would you like to start off with this one?
Sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
that segues a little bit from the question we just had, but it's what will you do
Right.
as assessor to improve transparency and communication with the public?
Yeah. You know, I have never been very much of a secret keeper. So to me, everything that I do has always pretty much been an open book. I think that, again, using the internet, using the website, there are several assessors' offices that I viewed in California that just have a wealth of information on the website. Tuolumne County, for example, has the Board of Equalization video right there on the main page. They've got a really helpful little PowerPoint presentation just kind of walking the consumer through the process of what to do if they feel that their current assessment of their home is not correct. And I just think that all of that information is so helpful. There's Los Angeles, of course, has many videos and different helpful little tools. And I just think that that's the kind of information that's really helpful to consumers who aren't necessarily experts in this field. And I just think that making information available to them. When I first announced my candidacy for this position in February, there were just a couple of, there were two little tiny yellow icons on the forms and docs page of the assessor's office. And one of them was labeled BOE forms. And I made mention to one of the supervisors that unless a consumer understands the connection between the assessor's office and the Board of Equalization, they're not going to know that BOE forms means that's where they need to go and in order to get forms that apply to them. So that was one of the things that after I told the supervisor, she said, well, this is something that really needs to be changed right away, so I'm definitely going to make a mention of it to the acting assessor. And I thought that that was a great idea because obviously the faster information gets to consumers, the better. So again, I just plan on using my the internet as a way to reach people.
What will you do as assessor to improve the transparency and communication with the public?
Well, before I answer that, I
Sure.
would like to know, are we going to be able to rebut this?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can, and
All right. Then,
yeah, we
then-
can.
Then
got
let me
it.
go ahead and
All right.
answer this particular question. When we talk about transparency in government, we talk about giving people information that they might not otherwise have access to. There are a number of regulations dealing with the confidentiality of assessors' records. So to the extent that we can make those records public, we do. We have property characteristics out on our public computers. We answer questions anyone has, and we've been working for some time with tech services to get that information out there on our website for the public. In terms of communication, I can tell you that in 2008, I initiated a series of public meetings where I went out into the communities from Jenny Lind to Copperopolis to West Point, Mountain Ranch, and even up in the Ebbets Pass area to talk to property owners about what we were doing around the decline in value. This year, more recently, I've been attending school board meetings and other public agencies to talk about how those declines in values actually trickle down and affect their budget. So in terms of what I will do for transparency and communication is I will improve on what I think is an already good track record.
All right.
Rebut.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, the timing system is, I'm using a watch if that's okay.
Okay. Here, let me see the timer here real quick.
I will look this. I'm sorry, I
All
apologize.
right. Here, Kim.
It keeps, when we are staying on track, I just want to make sure everybody gets fair time. So I had to ask her for her watch.
Okay. Here we go.
Has a second
Kim.
hand, right?
There's the reset. See, we're using phone,
Technology.
it's stopwatch right on there. So, okay, there's the reset and the start. There you go. Well, it's, the phones can do everything these days, right? Yeah.
So when they're done, I hit reset.
Yes,
But
correct.
It's not working. It's not doing anything. So I just been hitting start again.
Okay.
Please.
You can just use
Use the watch.
Okay.
Here. Well, then,
Just use the watch.
Kim. There you go. Okay. All right. Now this is, we'll allow a little longer on this one. The 3 minutes to answer this question out of the box, and then we'll allow some back and forth on this one as well. Please describe how Prop 13 works and how does it work when a taxpayer purchases. Let's just leave this. Please describe, for 3 minutes, please describe how Proposition 13 works. And we'll start off with you, Christy.
Okay. Proposition 13 was passed in 1978, and it amended the California Constitution basically as a protection for homeowners. What it did was it locked in your base year value subject to only a 2% annual cost of living increase. The whole point of that was so that you wouldn't have a situation where perhaps someone had their residence or their property that they'd owned for quite some time, and then due to market action completely beyond their control, they happen to live in an area that was very popular and values just shot up, and then if the property taxes could shoot up along with that, then they could possibly be priced out of their property just simply due to market action. Essentially with Proposition 13, there's just limitations on increases.
All right. Please describe how Prop 13 works.
Okay, well, Prop 13 on the surface is a very easy amendment to the California Constitution. What Proposition 13 said was that all property will have a base year value established as of 1975 unless the property or portion thereof undergoes new construction or a change in ownership. Prop 13 went on to say that once that base year value is established, you cannot increase that value by more than 2% or the increase in the California Consumer Price Index, whichever is less. And then Prop 13 took one more step as it related to tax rates, which has nothing to do with the assessor's office, but it's kind of interesting. Prop 13 limited tax rates to 1% plus voter-approved special bonds and indebtedness. And I think that's important because I was just looking through some old files probably 2 months ago while I was doing my taxes, and I discovered our tax rate in 1976 was 12%. So there was a very real reason why Prop 13 passed with the vote that it got.
All right. And as a follow-up on that, and this is the one from some of the tax, interested in the tax code. This one is, will you make a campaign promise to defend Prop 13 as written if an attack by the legislatures or referendum? So I guess basically the question is, would you defend Prop 13? Again, I guess that one is so. Who wants to start on that one? Who's up first?
I will.
All right.
John, that's a no-brainer. Prop
Okay.
13 is part of the Constitution, and so the obligation of every assessor is to protect Prop 13. What's not known by the general public is there have been a number of attacks on Prop 13 over the years. The legislature is always looking for ways to make money, and lately they have resurrected the idea of eliminating the Prop 13 protections on commercial and industrial property. I can tell you that the California Assessors Association, of which I'm a member, has testified before the legislature in opposition to that attempt. In fact, I would say that Prop 13, on the surface, a very simple constitutional amendment, has been totally changed over the years by legislative action. And for the most part, assessors have not agreed with it. But when the legislature passes a law, our responsibility is to follow that law.
All right. This is a question.
Christie's turn.
You're right. There you go. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself here. I'm looking through my questions here, going, okay, what's a good one next? So go ahead.
Yes. I will absolutely defend Prop 13. And I'm actually glad that Leslie brought up the 2% limit and the CPI, because that was actually one of the concerns that I had. And another one of the reasons that I am running is that the CPI actually decreased. And when I got my property tax bill, I still had that 2% increase on there. And so that is something that I would like to know why.
Do we get rebuttal?
Yes, you
Because
do.
I'd be very happy to answer that, Christy, for you and for any of the viewers.
Yeah, please do.
The California Consumer Price Index went down for this coming assessment year. It went down 0.25% for the 2010 assessment year. The last bill that you received was the 2009 assessment year.
Right.
And for that year, it did go up 2%. Confusion that many people have is that when the real estate market goes down, they think their property tax value should go down. Unfortunately, in the property tax world, those increases are linked to the change in the Consumer Price Index. And that information is provided to assessors by the State Board of Equalization through a letter to assessors every December. So in December 2008, we were advised that we were to increase all assessed values by 2%. And in December 2009, for the 2010 roll, we were advised that we would be decreasing by about 0.25%. So when we close the assessment roll this June, all properties with a base year value established before July 1st, 2009 will see their base year value go down.
All right. Now, next question is, this is what some of for people looking at there, this is a informational one as well as a question. Please explain the negative supplemental roll. You want to start off with that one?
Explain the negative supplemental roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. The negative supplemental roll is going to be with the reduction in the values.
Should we have phrased that as just the supplemental roll? Probably would that have been a better way to phrase the question? Just the
Well, a
supplemental roll?
supplemental, first of all, for the viewers, to define the supplemental tax roll, that's going to be the difference between the prior assessed value and the current assessed value upon an event such as adding improvements or a transfer of sale. So ordinarily, in most markets, that supplemental has been primarily a positive adjustment. When the value, when it's a decrease in the other direction, then you would end up with a negative roll.
Okay. All right. Would you like to tackle that? Explain the supplemental and the negative supplemental roles.
Well, the negative supplemental roll is, in fact, when the supplemental assessments go negative. We had the supplemental roll go negative in August, and I went out and started talking to school boards in August to let them know that that was coming. A negative supplemental roll does a couple of things. First, it refunds money to taxpayers, which is a good thing. And second, for public agencies, it causes a negative cash flow. So I thought it was important for everyone to understand that impact in August when we first saw that happen.
All right. All right, this is a budgetary one. What challenges will you face considering the large budget deficit, and how will you deal with those challenges? I'll start off with you.
Well, as everybody knows, we've been asked to make another 17.5% cut to our budget. We made a 17.5% cut last year as well. This year's cut is about $154,000, and it's going to result in another 2.5 employees being removed from our office structure. So starting at the beginning of the next fiscal year, we will be down to 12 employees. We're down to 13 right now because I try to manage through attrition and not fill positions when I can save money for the county.
All right. What challenges will you face considering the large budget deficit, and how will you deal with those challenges?
As a self-employed business owner, we, I think, are always extremely cognizant of the budgetary challenges every single day because it's our money. And so I think that that learning to work with the amount of money that I have is something that I'm extremely skilled at. The challenges of government, of course, are that there are certain things that they must do per statute, laws, etc. But I think that that again, we go back to technology. Technology could be utilized to a much further extent to make up for the shortfalls that have to happen when we actually have to have human staff cutbacks. One of the things that I am particularly concerned with is having technology in a position so that when values go in the other direction and they're actually going up, we don't have what we were faced with in between 2003 and 2005, where there was really a delay in the supplemental assessments, and so there was money out there that was due to the assessor, that was due to the county of Calaveras, but because the supplemental assessments were so far behind, it was money that was out there that we couldn't collect right away, and so I think that would be very important.
All right.
Do we want to talk about that?
Go ahead.
Okay. From 2003 to 2005, we were not behind on our supplemental assessments. We were behind in 2000, 2001, and 2002. In fact, we got as far behind as 30 months. The reason that we were lagging behind those supplemental assessments was the conversion of the county's old legacy system to the new megabyte system. And because of that conversion, both the assessor's office, the tax collector, and the auditor's office, all three were having trouble adapting to that new computer technology. I would suggest to you, Christy, that technology is not the end-all and be-all of how we do our jobs. It takes people, and it takes people who understand that technology.
All right. Would you like to?
I would, absolutely. Technology is not the be-all, end-all, but many of us in business for a long time have been using technology to a much greater extent, and we've done so to the benefit of our clients and to the benefit of the world in general. We can get information real time very quickly. Technology is certainly there, and if fully utilized, then you can make things easier for everyone, including the average person. And yes, I've been running my business. I haven't been in your business. So absolutely, I don't know where the paper clips are in the assessor's office. And I'm sure that there's plenty of people there who are going to be able to point me to the right drawer. But what I do know is that in my business and in lots of other businesses, that routinely I use 27 different types of software every day, not including the standard Microsoft Office type things. And all of these technologies are able to interface and get data from point A to point B so much quickly. You're able to make changes to certain amounts of data very quickly. So you can, when the market changes, you can actually make a change across the board to similarly affected people so that everybody who's in a situation that can benefit gets the benefit of that. We both know that the Prop 8 reductions are not retroactive. If someone's home dropped in value in 2007 for the 1108 lien date, we both know that if they did not get reassessed lower in that time and it still hasn't happened and it's 2010, then they've missed the boat. They're not ever going to get that money back. And so it's very important for Prop 8 reductions, for example, to be able to be applied to everybody evenly.
Would you like to respond a little bit, and then we'll move on? So.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, this is on to some of the market value questions. Does the assessor's office establish fair market value or tracks market value? And I guess this is the one. Does the assessor's office establish a fair market value or track fair market value? Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
It makes sense to me.
How about this one? How about let's rephrase this as, let's see, market value of properties. How currently are market values assessed for properties in the county? I mean, I guess what's the process for doing that? Oh, this is this may be a little bit of a general interest question. I know this comes. Am I phrasing that badly? Okay. One of the hot topics of this
How do we
one
do
has
our
been,
job?
well, I guess is in the era of declining property values.
Okay.
And I know this goes back to a little bit of this may be a little bit of redundant, but I know a lot of people watching this because this may be the
Okay.
first time they get into stuff for the assessor's office
Okay.
and we'll take, say, 3 minutes or so on this one and let's say in this era of declining market property values, what's the process used right now, or I guess how does the assessor's office handle property values?
Okay, that's very clear
Yes.
and pretty easy to answer,
Got it.
although I don't know that I can do this in 3 minutes,
Okay.
so I'll talk fast. In the era that we've been facing over the past few years with declining market values, we've gotten much better at how we analyze those declines. A decline in value is measured as of January 1st every year. So as we look at the 2010 assessment roll, we are looking at the value as of January 1st, 2010. My appraisers have talked to me about how far back in time they think we need to go for any sort of major reappraisal to look at those values to reduce them. So, for example, as we talked about where the market is in Calaveras now compared to where it was 5, 10, or maybe even as many as 15 years ago, my appraisal staff thought we were back to about the 2000 level. And my empirical data tells me they're correct simply by a piece of property that I'm pretty familiar with in that same time frame. Because of the 2% increase every year, I actually backed up to January 1st, 1998. And we have identified almost 25,000 properties that we will be reviewing for the 2010 lien date that either changed ownership or had major new construction like a new house or a major pool or some sort of addition that my appraisers will be reviewing. And they will be reviewing that using the very technology, Christy, that you're suggesting that we are not using. They have lookup tables and pivot tables. They have a database that they have been developing over the years and using megabyte data. They will be able to upload a comparison of current market value to assessed value, and they will be able to compare what should be enrolled on the 2010 assessment roll. I am confident that by the time we close the roll on July 1st, we will have been able to identify most of the properties that should have been reduced. But the good news for anybody who we miss is this. We have a year to get your reduced value on that assessment roll. So if we miss you, if you do not get a letter from us saying that we've reduced your value, give us a phone call and we will look at it to see if your property should have been reduced using the same standards that we used for everyone else.
All right. And that question was probably geared a little bit towards somebody who's actually in the office now. But I guess what would, as far as the assessor's office and deciding property, adjusting property values, do you want to take off on that question? And,
Well, what I'd like
Okay.
to do is perhaps go back to the initial
that was
question.
that was a very lame segment. Bad moderating on that one, but
I'd like to go back to the initial question about the establishment of fair market value. The fair market value is established by the actions of buyers and sellers in an open market in that given year. Property values are not established by the assessor. They are established by whatever's going on in the market. So if you've got a 1,200 square foot house on a quarter of an acre lot and it's listed on the multiple listing service and the seller of course wants to get as much money as they can get for it, and any number of buyers are able to view and possibly offer this property and see whatever else is on the market. If they end up coming to an agreement at a price of $200,000, then that is the fair market value of that property because the fair market has determined that. If they arrive at a price of $400,000, then that is the fair market value of that property because the fair market has determined that. This is why values fluctuate. There's a bunch of different factors, but essentially it's the actions of the fair market. And the job of the assessor is simply to track that market, follow it, and then assess accordingly. But it is not to establish it. Now, if a transaction is not an open market transaction, for example, if you've got a person who decides that they want to sell a property to their employee or to a cousin or something like that, then they may choose to sell something at less than market value. But that is not an open market transaction. So I think that that was probably the at least the way I understood it, the point of that question. And I think that the key is that, yes, everyone is now going to get assessed according to the January 1, 2010 lien date. But what I'm concerned with is the people who missed the boat, and I've had literally at this point, since I entered this campaign, I've been contacted by over 100 people who have concerns because the January 1, 2008 lien date came and went, and they did not get reassessed, and their properties were worth less. The January 1, 2009 lien date came and went, and their properties were not reassessed appropriately. And now we're working on 2010, but unfortunately, that's a lot of money that some people had to spend because they, for whatever reason, missed the boat. And it's those people that I'm very concerned with.
I guess as a follow-up then, is that, do you want to respond to that as far as the
Sure.
processes on the reassessing? Sure. Yeah, okay.
I would say that concerns me as well. It seriously concerns me that someone feels they should have been reassessed downward due to a decline in value in 2008, and they did not call our office, and they waited till a campaign was going to talk to one of the candidates. It seriously bothers me that someone thought that they should have been reassessed for 2009 and have not yet called us. Those are the kinds of problems that I really don't like to hear, and that is why we put out press releases. Last June, when we closed the assessment roll, we announced that we were sending out letters for Prop 8s. We encourage people on a regular basis to contact us and let us know if they think there's something wrong with their assessment. So that does seriously concern me, and I would appreciate if anyone who's listening or anyone who's in the room knows of those types of incidences, that they let us know. We have 1 year from the moment we close the assessment roll to get those declines in values enrolled. In fact, I can tell you my number one priority by law is to lower assessed values first. The second priority by law is to defend assessment appeals. We have 4 years to enroll change of ownership in new construction assessments, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of hitting those deadlines. But if we miss one of those 1-year timeframes, I'd really like to hear it.
In a lot of cases, the people did contact your office, and the wide range of answers that they have gotten was disturbing enough for me to take notice. And I did look up and verify a lot of the information that they brought to me, simply because in the years that I've been in business, I know that sometimes people have a misinterpretation. And what I looked up, and when I checked the comparable sales, in a lot of cases they were correct. And that was
Then I would
that is a
suggest that you
concern.
should have called the office as well.
Okay.
You can't talk to me about a taxpayer's issue.
I can't
That would
talk
be
to you about how
confidential.
I cannot talk to you about how their assessed value was created, but you can let me know that there's a problem.
All right. Cool. Move on here.
Okay.
Okay. All right. In the matters of fair market value, which decision is final, the assessor or the appeals board, local board of equalization? So I guess in the matters of fair market value, if a consumer has a problem with the prices, who is the final arbiter of that? I guess
Who goes first?
I've lost track here. I was just trying to get out of that last exchange before
That's
we get out. I'm just
okay.
kidding. Yeah.
So if there's
Yeah, we'll paraphrase it. Okay. Does the assessor's office establish? No, let's see. In the matters of fair market value, which decision is final? The assessor or the appeals board, which would be the local board? So maybe that's another poorly worded one, and it's just bad moderating.
Actually, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
All
an
right,
easy
so,
one.
yeah.
The appeals
Phew,
board.
good.
The
All right,
appeals
okay.
board decision is final. The assessor's decision can be appealed, and that's where the appeals board comes in. And then the appeals board decision is final.
All right. You need to follow up on that? Or is that
I
pretty
don't
much-
think so, except I would like to clarify that the appeals board is not the local board of equalization. Technically, the local board of equalization was the board of supervisors sitting in that capacity.
Got it. So they use. Yeah.
And the appeals board decision is only final if there has been an appeal. Otherwise, after 4 years have elapsed, the assessor's decision is final.
All right. And this one probably should have gone. This is more of a little more of an informational one. And now, what does the term equalize actually mean when it comes to property taxation? So what is if the appeals board is just, what does the term equalize mean when it comes to property taxation with Leslie?
Equalize is a term that's held over from the pre-Prop 13 days. Before Proposition 13 passed, we would assess all properties at what we called equalized values, so that all 1,200 square foot houses on an eighth of an acre in Murphy's that were built in 1965 would have had the same value. Since Proposition 13 passed, your value is established based on when your base year value was created. So you could have purchased your house in 1975 and still be living in it and have a much lower value than someone who purchased in, say, 2005. Obviously, those would be two different values. Equalize is a remnant term, and it really doesn't apply to the way business is done unless you start talking about assessment appeals and their concept of equalizing.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add to that?
Certainly. Currently, the term equalization basically applies to the remedy that the taxpayer has to appeal their assessment, and then the determination that the appeals board would make, whether it's a separate appeals board or whether it's the local board of supervisors sitting as the local board of equalization. That is probably what would most closely match the term
Okay.
equalization.
All right. Now, kind of segue into our next question. What role does the appeals board play, and how does a taxpayer actually get in front of the appeals board? I guess this is more of a process question as well, but I guess we'll start with you on that one.
Currently, the first step would be for the for the taxpayer to go ahead and file the application to have their home reassessed. It's an informal reassessment request, even though it does need to be done in writing. And then if they are not satisfied with their assessment, then they have the option to be able to actually file a request for an appeals hearing with the clerk of the board, and go through their process of doing that when their appeal is scheduled and they're able to be heard before the appeals board.
All right. Anything you want to add to that?
Well, I probably want to be a little bit clearer about the role of the appeals board. The job of the appeals board is to adjudicate a dispute between a property owner and the assessor's office. Quite often, a property owner will come in, they will disagree with an assessment, and we will agree with them and make a rule correction. But sometimes that's not the way it works. Sometimes a property owner simply will not agree with what we say, and we will not agree with what they say. In those cases, when an application for changed assessment is filed, the appeals board's job is to listen to both sides and render a decision based on the evidence presented.
All right.
We're up against an hour. but-
We are. We're getting there. We're getting down there an hour. Let's see. And I guess we'll get down there to where, for closing statements and comments. Okay. Well, I think we're getting tired there. So anyway, would you want to field some more questions? You want to go to closing statements? We'll leave that up to you guys. If you want to keep going at this, or closing statements, or.
I'm fine with more
right.
questions.
Okay.
If people have more questions, I'm here to answer them. I think that it's very important that the voters understand what the real issues are of this race, and I also want the voters to understand what information is truly coming from me. There have been a lot of accusations that I've said or done things that I haven't said or done, and so I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to state exactly what I'm doing.
And I guess I don't know how to really segue into it, but some of these races have been a little bit contentious, down the stretch. And I think that's the way we're kind of at that time in the election cycle where things kind of get that way. I guess, is there, and this is the last little question before we go into the closing statements, is there anything that, and this kind of segues from what you just said, is there anything that's been out there or anything that you'd like to do a clear the air piece on or anything like that on, and we'll give a couple minutes of that as kind of an open-ended one and before we go into the closing statements. Does anybody have any things
I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do, actually. And
I know that was poorly worded, but I
No,
think it was just from
no.
the back and
No,
forth.
that's
I think
very
I think it's an opportunity to do so.
There are three things that I've heard from Christy that are disturbing to me, and I'd like to bring them up. One is her comment tonight that she talked to a county supervisor who said that they would come in and talk to me about changing the website. In reality, Marita has never come and talked to me about the website. Since you said it's not too hard to figure out who that county supervisor is. We've been working on our website updates for well over a year. I came back from a conference last spring and asked that we add to our website the lookup function for property owners to see if they will be on our review list for the Prop 8 decline in value. This year we have just under 25,000 parcels that we'll be reviewing. And this year, fortunately, with working with our tech services department, we were able to add that lookup to our website, and it's being very well received by the public. So I want to clear the air that the website changes have had nothing to do with what my opponent has suggested, and everything to do with things that have been in the works for probably close to a year. The second comment that I heard you make tonight, you mentioned twice multiple listing service. I can tell you that over the last decade, we have made numerous requests to multiple listing to be able to access that data, and they have refused that repeatedly. So, Christy, I would say to you, whether you win or lose, I would really appreciate your help getting multiple listing access for the assessor's office. And then the third thing that, Christy, you are quoted as saying in the Calaveras Enterprise was the comment that basically you felt you would have to investigate everyone on that staff. Personally, I found that that comment unconscionable. I cannot believe that anybody would run for this office thinking that they were going to have to investigate everyone on staff. I think that showing that kind of disrespect for the staff does a disservice to them, and I believe they deserve an apology.
Okay, absolutely. First of all, in order to, I understand your statement that it's simply a coincidence that all of the changes to the website just happened to have been made after I started talking about them. That's fine. A coincidence, obviously. As far as the statement that that I was going to have to investigate everyone in the assessor's office, I absolutely did not make that statement. And at the time that Joel Metzger, who was the one who called me, when he called me about some statements that some citizens had made earlier that morning at the Board of Supervisors, I was not at the meeting. I didn't know what statements were made, and I actually asked Metzger to fax me the documents that he was talking about because I hadn't even seen them. So he faxed those documents up to me, and I said, you know, I'm not even in a position to comment on these. I can't tell you why these documents read the way they read. And he said to me, oh, well, you know, I just need somebody who is an expert on these types of matters to tell me define these documents. And I said, well, you should really ask your dad. He was the one in charge at the time. And he goes, oh, no, my editor won't allow me to do that. And I said, well, then you should ask Mrs. Davis. Oh, no, my editor said that I have to ask a neutral third party. What the questions that he asked me were questions such as, if everyone in the office was participating in this, would you have to investigate? And I said, well, I would certainly hope not. I would find that to be highly unlikely. But of course, if that was the case, it would be, it was yes or no answers to a series of questions that he asked. When he asked me, well, what do you think the problem was on these documents? And I said, well, Joel, I really can't answer that. It could be any number of things. It could have been a typographical error. It could have been a clerical error. It could have been a system glitch. And all of those things didn't make the paper because they simply weren't spicy enough, I would imagine. But I absolutely at no point in time made any suggestion whatsoever that anyone did anything intentionally, nor did I make a suggestion that I thought anyone did anything intentionally. What I can tell everyone is that it does concern me and would concern me if, when I'm assessor, if any taxpayer comes into the Board of Supervisors meeting and uses their 5 minutes in public comment to complain about my office. What I can tell you is that I'm going to be very concerned about that. And I'm going to take personal responsibility for that. I'm not going to blame my staff. I'm not going to blame anybody for any concern that any taxpayer has. I'm going to get out of my chair and run right down there and say, you know what? You have a problem. I'm in charge. The buck stops here.
All right. Any little rebut to that, or then we'll go to closing statements? You want to? No? Okay. All right. Starting on with the closing statements then, and go ahead, Leslie. You want to start there?
Okay. Again, thank you, John and Kim Hamilton at the Pine Tree, for allowing Christy and I to come together and answer the questions that you have. Thanks to all of you who are tuning in live, and those of you who may watch it when you maybe can't sleep at night. Again, it's been my pleasure serving the residents of Calaveras County for the last 10 years. As your acting assessor, I thoroughly enjoy the job and feel it's a privilege, and I'm very fortunate to be able to serve each and every one of you. I would appreciate your support for assessor in the June 8th election, and I would appreciate your vote.
And I'd like to thank the residents of Calaveras County for taking the time to tune in. I'd like to thank John and Kim for providing this venue for us. I think that it's been very helpful and will be helpful for the voters. As a lifelong resident of this county, I love this county. I love the people. I want to see us grow and prosper. My business experience and my experience as a loan officer, as a broker, as a business owner has given me all the tools that I need in order to be able to provide excellent service to the residents of Calaveras County. I think that most of you know when you've gotten your loan, who did you call when you had questions about your appraisal? It was probably your loan officer. Who did you call when you needed to understand how the comparable sales were chosen and how they relate to the value of your property? It was probably explained to you by your loan officer. Who do you call when you have problems with your impound account or when you need to have it explained to you how your property taxes are going to be prorated, how they're calculated, that type of thing? It was probably your loan officer. Most people know that someone who is a mortgage broker, someone who has a broker's license, someone who's been actively working in the field that establishes fair market value, that is the fair market between buyers and sellers, is very well equipped to determine what the assessed value of your property is going to be for tax purposes. I do not have a long history in government, and I think that that's a good thing. I think that fresh eyes, new ideas is exactly what we need. And I think that it will be good for the for government to have a little bit of a changeover, new ideas, and in order to bring all of that to you, I would very much appreciate your vote on June 8th. Thank you.
And in closing, I'd like to say, is from following these local elections, is thank you to both of you for running. And I think for a lot of people sitting on there, we've said this in some of the different interviews, for the people sitting on the sidelines, deciding to run for a public office cannot be something that is taken lightly, because you become the product. It's, you're out there in the public eye, and I think to see the effort that the candidates put forward on these races is truly commendable. And win or lose in either one, I think the county is better served by, with the people running, and I want to say thank you both for running. And I think it's, for people on the sidelines that are judging this, with their votes on June 8th and things like that, in some ways you'd like to say if you think that they can do a better job, than either run next time, right? I mean, it's one of those things. It's a tough thing. But I also want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for running, because I think. I think it makes the whole process better, and I know that at times it's not an easy one, especially down the home stretch on these races. It's, because everything's personal, and it's, anyway, and I just wish you both best of luck down the stretch.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you. And thank you. Thanks. And good night. And we'll have the replay up. The replay will probably be up within a couple hours. All right, thank you.
Good night.
God willing.